All right. Good evening, baseball fans. I tried to get through that so smoothly, and I messed up saying baseball, and now I just look like an idiot. But welcome in Bicoastal Baseball here on the Grid Network. I'm Mike Guido. That's Dalton Brown, donning a Twins hat again. I think this is our first double dip, Dalton, with caps at the moment.
It is, and it's just well deserved. The Twins have earned it 10 in a row. Very excited for them as my AL team to see their success and see them turn that early start around. So it's Twins Day as far as I'm concerned.
It certainly is. It looks like 10 straight wins for the Twins. We'll be touching on that a little bit later. On a personal note, I want to publicly congratulate our buddy Dalton Brown for officially entering the Triple M Club. You know what the Triple M Club is, right, Dalton? The Miserable Married Men's Club.
I haven't hit that first M yet. I'm doing pretty well so far.
Yeah.
Got time to figure that part out. But yeah, man, we're here.
Yep. Congratulations. Welcome to the club. We are both now married men in the last, whatever it is, 7 months or so. You and I both tied the knot. And that's great stuff for us. So congratulations to you, my friend. We have a big show today. Mike Trout getting injured. And I mean, listen, I don't know what our expectations were for the Angels anyway, but that's certainly some big news. One of the better players in baseball when healthy. Obviously, he looked like he was getting off to a fantastic start, leading the American League in home runs to start the year. He goes down for the Angels. We'll touch on that a little bit later. Big series coming up in a couple of days. The Braves and the Dodgers in Los Angeles. That's a massive series. We have pitching matchups for that. We're going to preview that series going forward. We'll look at that as well. Listen, obviously today it's live scores and everything like that. We've got plenty of stuff to go over today. That's the great part. And then Dalton's Hot Corner a little bit later. Put an extra couple of bucks in your pocket. Okay, but before we get started in anything else, just like how we do in every single show that we do, we cater to our own fan bases. Yankees, Dodgers. So, Yankee rant of today. Right now, they lead 2-0. Oswaldo Cabrera had a 2-run home run off Corbin Burns. I'm very happy about that. Luis Gil is pitching absolutely fantastic in Baltimore at the moment. However, this is kind of like where, and Dalton, you and I discussed this last week, I think, where like what we saw from the Yankees in the last 4 days is like that's the best and the most frustrating part about this team. The last 2 games in Milwaukee, they score 30 runs in 2 games. They absolutely mollywop the Brewers. And the Brewers are a good team, right? With decent pitching. So they mollywop the Brewers. They then go to Baltimore the very next day and get shut out by Grayson Rodriguez. Like it is mind-boggling to me how like unbelievably up this team can go and how catastrophically down this team can go, right? And we kind of talked about this last week about how this is just kind of like, this might just be who the Yankees are. They're very boomer bust, right? They're going to hit a ton of home runs. They're going to have these big booming games, but then they're also, I mean, they're among the league leaders in shutouts at the moment. I think only the White Sox have more, and they're terrible. So it is unsettling for a Yankee fan to see a team with this many big names, with this high of a payroll, with this good of a start to the season, getting shut out as many times as they are, finding like constantly having a struggle of, you know, they have these 1 or 2 days where they put up a bunch of runs, but then it seems like the rest of the week or another 7 days or 8 days after that, they really struggle to score runs. And I say this every single week, I think. I'm stunned by how good their pitching's been. I mean, I saw a stat earlier that because Clark Schmidt pitched wonderfully a couple of days ago against the Orioles. In Major League Baseball, and this might be one of those like I don't know, ESPN-ish, like where they just make up stats and stuff like that. But Clark Schmidt is one of those guys. Let's get Dalton back in here. Hey, there you go, buddy. We're finally into this, baby. But Clark Schmidt in all of Major League Baseball has the most consecutive starts with allowing less than 3 runs. I mean, like that is like Garrett, and below him is like Garrett Cole. I don't know, Pablo. I'm making up stuff, but he's among the top of the pitchers in baseball as far as that statistic is concerned, and I'm stunned. Luis Gil's been great. Stroman's been really consistent. Like, I just don't like. This is why I have like sustainability concerns, Dalton. This is the up and down of the Yankees that just like it gets me excited, but also drives me crazy.
I mean, I certainly understand that. I think it's, as a fan watching your team day in and day out, it's frustrating when you feel like there's no consistency.
Yeah.
But I think, look, I mean, most important with all of this is kind of the bottom line of it. Yankees are 19-12.
Yeah.
They're clearly a good ball club. A lot of the concerns for them were, could they survive early season potential doldrums, understanding the situation with injuries to Garrett Cole and others, right?
Yeah.
So I think you have to take a positive look at what they've done so far overall. The pitching, like you said, has exceeded expectations. You look at the run differential plus 39, that puts them right in line with Baltimore. It seems like those two teams have a pretty good chance to kind of go neck and neck down the stretch, which could be a lot of fun to watch. Make series like the one going on right now really important.
Yeah.
But overall, look, I think it's easier said than done, but you've got to take kind of the whole sum of it, right? 15 runs 2 days in a row. There aren't very many teams that can do that at all, right? All season. The Yankees are one of very few. Any team can get shut out any given night. So I think those things will even out over time. And some nights you just run into a pitcher who's just hot. Like it'll happen. But from a watchability standpoint, certainly understand where you're coming from. From like a genuine level of concern standpoint, the fact that the pitching has looked good, I think puts the Yankees in a position where it's hard to really be worried.
Yeah, it really. I mean, I understand where you're coming from that too. I mean, just to give you an idea, Luis Gil and the Baltimore Orioles are a very good baseball team, and this is in Baltimore, which is, I mean, I don't know. It used to be a good hitter's ballpark. I'm not sure it is anymore since straight left field is 400 feet. Like, by the way, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a Yankee fan. Maybe I am, but I don't care. How they pushed left field so far back and doubled the height of the wall is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It is unbelievable. Like, why would you do that to yourself? I don't understand.
I mean, I don't like it either, but it's pretty hilarious that like Yankee fans are just now throwing a fit about it after Michael Kay made his comment on air, like, "Oh, well, it'd be a tie game."
3 years ago, it'd be a tie game.
Like, yeah, I mean, but you guys have played in this ballpark every year since. Like, this shouldn't be news to Yankee fans. I just think it's really funny how like all of a sudden they get victimized by it, and now it's like this is a Major League Baseball issue that needs fixing. Like, I just think it's very Yankees. It's very, New York is the center of the world. It's very funny.
It is pretty funny. I mean, I just find it hilarious how the area next to the bullpen in left field, you got to hit it 420 feet to hit it out. You can hit a 410-foot fly out to left field in that part. It's unbelievable. But again, back to my point before, just to give you an idea, Luis Gil, 6 1/3, 2 hits against the Orioles today. Listen, and we can move on to the Dodgers after this, but I think Luis Gil might be really good. He might be actually pretty darn good.
I mean, look, I think we're about like we're getting to a point where you're starting to get some somewhat representative samples, right? Like if you get a month into the season, if you get 5, 6, 7 starts into the season, and it still looks pretty good, you kind of have to start opening your eyes to it a little bit. Now, we don't know anything for sure, right? Like we've seen guys like Blake Snell last year. We talked about it last week, right? Awful April, and then puts it together and wins a Cy Young. Yeah. And we've seen the reverse of that certainly plenty as well. So you don't want to buy too deep into it, but with a younger guy like him, like you don't have a whole lot else to go off of. It's like, well,
Yeah.
maybe this kind of is who he is. And I'll touch on that with a couple Dodger guys too, where, you expect pitchers to struggle when they're first starting out. And so when they don't, it makes the ceiling feel absurd.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're wrong for feeling that way. It certainly would be a sight for sore eyes for Yankees fans, given some of the struggles they've had with young pitching in recent years. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be excited. I'm not going to play devil's advocate on it.
Yeah. Now, it was health. The big thing was health, is that he spent the last couple of years hurt. You barely saw him on the field. But before he got hurt, when he first came up, he was fantastic. And now he's coming up. I mean, his ERA is I think, a 4 at the moment. But he's put together, I mean, that's inflated by maybe one bad start. Like, he's been, generally speaking, very, very good pretty often. So, anyway, talking about young pitching, that kind of leads into your Dodgers rant today.
Yeah, I mean, look, I spoke a week ago about how like everybody needs to take a deep breath. Um, and the Dodgers on this road trip have gone 6-2 since then. They did what was expected of them, sweeping the Nats in DC. Looked very solid in Toronto, taking 2 out of 3. There's no shame in Gausman getting us in the last game. He's a good pitcher. What I take away from it mostly with the Dodgers is it pays to be patient with young pitching. And it's easy to forget that Yoshinobu Yamamoto is one of those young pitchers, because we typically see these guys when they come over from Japan, they're a little bit older.
Right.
But, I'll start with Gavin Stone, right? Gavin Stone's a guy who was right there with Bobby Miller. It was both of them were getting called up, and it's like, here come the 2 studs, Gavin Stone, Bobby Miller. And Gavin Stone struggled last year. He was not locating his pitches where he needed to. He was getting drilled as a result. And he's a guy that relies on like a really, really good changeup. And you got to locate that type of a pitch. Dodgers have continued to run him out there, give him time, trust the prospect pedigree. And now 2 of his last 3 starts have been not just good, but great. We took a no-hitter into the 6th inning against San Diego, ends up going 6.2 innings, gives up 2 runs. And then Friday, during my wedding, he comes out here and puts up 7 innings of 1-run ball on the road in Toronto, only 2 hits. If that's the Gavin Stone we're going to get, even though the strikeouts aren't terribly high, the pitchability has always kind of been there. And if this is the Gavin Stone we're going to get moving forward, and those are not bad lineups either,
Nope.
then I'm really excited about, what we're going to see from him every 5th day as he continues to get used to this level of baseball. Same thing with Landon Knack. Now, Landon Knack, he just recently debuted. This is not a guy who debuted last year and kind of stunk it up the way Stone did. But you look at Knack so far, he's not doing anything all that spectacular, but he's going out there and he's managing the game effectively, and he's consistently putting up a winning effort. That's all you can ask for a guy like this who's just coming up to this level and who they have high hopes for. This is a lot better than what we saw out of the 4 and 5 spots in the Dodgers rotation last year. Knack in his 3 starts so far, 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 innings, 2 earned, 5 innings, 1 run. That'll play. If you're pitching for the Dodgers and you're putting up those numbers, you're going to win 13 to 15 games. So it's very exciting to see that. I think I preached patience early on with Yamamoto. I think he's mostly proven me right on that as well. Like, you look at his last couple of starts, at Washington, 6 shutout innings. Against the Mets, 6 innings, 3 runs, 9 Ks in that one. The one before that, 5 innings, 3 earned. So he hasn't been great, but there's been a steady upward trajectory with him, and we've seen flashes of it. 2 of his last 4 starts have been scoreless. He's got a 2.45 ERA in April. I'm excited to see how he pitches in Arizona tonight. But with Buehler coming back within a week or 2, Kershaw coming back sometime this summer, there's a lot to be excited about, I think, with the Dodgers staff. And that's even with, like, Dustin May being way off in the abyss with his injury, Tony Gonsolin being off in the abyss with his injury, Bobby Miller, we don't know when he'll be back, but he'll be back at some point soon. I'm just excited about the depth in general. Like, if this is what we're going to get out of Landon Knack and Gavin Stone, we can weather some shit. And that's exciting because the offense has scored 169 runs, which is more than any team in baseball by a decent margin, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm glad I caught them at their nadir at over 99.5 wins. I think the Dodgers will win 100 games comfortably. We'll see.
I don't necessarily disagree. I think they're one of those teams where you can bank on over 100 wins pretty easily. And Yamamoto's a really interesting guy, right? Because, I mean, he got off, earlier in the year. He really kind of struggled. He just seemingly has an issue with the Padres, I guess, right? His first start in Korea, he, gets shelled against the Padres. His last start against the Padres at Dodger Stadium, it was, 5 innings, like you said, 3 earned. Like, look, he might just struggle with the Padres. I mean, that might just be his MO. The Dodgers may just own him for now.
Yeah, and I think they're both games. It was the same thing. Well, not quite, but it was kind of the same thing in both games. In the first game, he couldn't throw strikes, and so when he was throwing strikes, they would get me over. They were getting crushed. Second game, again, you could tell he was making a concerted effort to get ahead of hitters, and he was just kind of laying fastballs over the middle of the plate. And I think part of what he's steadily learning is that you have to be willing to pitch guys backwards some of the time. You have to be willing to, land that splitter, land that breaking ball. We've seen him do that a bit more. The control is something that's always been there for him. So, I'm really excited to see him and Montgomery tonight in Arizona. Should be a pretty fun pitching matchup.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's 2 highly touted free agents at the moment, or from this past offseason. Yamamoto, like I said, at where he stands right now, a 3.54 ERA, 2-1 record, where he sits with the Dodgers. Jordan Montgomery off to a pretty solid start in Arizona. I think people kind of expected that as well. 2.77 in 13 innings pitched for the Diamondbacks for Jordan Montgomery. So that should be a good matchup, a nice division matchup. The Diamondbacks, I mean, again, it's still very early on in the season, 14-17 to start. They've underwhelmed me a little bit. And I'm sure that we can touch on that a little bit later. But let's give you our first score update of the day. There were a lot of games that finished up earlier today. The Brewers beat the Rays in Milwaukee 7-1. They're rebounding off of their rough weekend against the Yankees. Tigers taking a win against St. Louis after the doubleheader yesterday. They split the doubleheader yesterday in Detroit. The Twins, hey, listen, survivor pool, baby. 10-5 with a win against the White Sox. And this is coming off of, listen, that's the reason why I didn't feel 100% comfortable going into this. I knew it was the White Sox, but coming off of they just swept the Rays. I didn't want to pick a team playing them while the White Sox get hot at the exact wrong time. You know what I mean? So I'm just, I was a little uncomfortable, but see,
the White Sox don't get hot.
They
don't have the talent to get hot.
Well, I mean, it's a relative hot. If they took 2 out of 3 from the Twins, that's a problem for me. That's all I'm saying.
It'd be a problem for me too. But that's why I'm with you in Survivor Pool and the Twins. And by the way, did you see the other guy in our Survivor Pool? The one guy who didn't take the Twins, he's 0-3 with the Pirates, who just got swept by the A's. So, you and I have to discuss that at some point, because how many people are left? Is it just you, me, and 1 or 2 other guys? There are 5 of us left. It's about to be 4 unless the Pirates sweep the Rockies this weekend.
But that's doable. That's kind of doable.
Yeah.
So
and look, this is where I've got the Dodgers and Braves both left. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, that's interesting stuff. I'm trying to be conservative in some of my picks too. Royals took down the Blue Jays in Toronto today, 6-1. The A's, as we just discussed, 4-0, completing the sweep against Pittsburgh in Oakland. The Atlanta Braves winning 5-2 against Seattle on the West Coast. Phillies finishing off that series, 2-1 win against the Angels in Anaheim. And then the Padres taking a win 6-2 against the Reds in San Diego. As we currently stand right now, the Yankees ahead 2-0 on the Orioles in the bottom of the 8th. The Marlins are up on the Rockies 2-1 in the bottom of the 8th. We should talk extensively, I think, about that game. Dalton, what do you think?
So Marlins Rockies, they played a wild game yesterday. I don't know how much of that you saw.
Yeah.
But the only game in Major League Baseball history where a team scored 5 runs in the first, the other team scored 5 runs in the ninth, and nobody scored in between the two.
Wow.
So if nothing else, the Rockies and Marlins at 7-22 and 7-24 are finding ways to be interesting in South Florida. So good for them. I also, when you're walking through these scores, I gotta say, I'm starting to worry that I might have been wrong about the Blue Jays. This is bad. I mean, the 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers is understandable, but now the Royals come in and take 2 out of 3 from them, and it just feels like an uninspired ball club. Like, you look at that lineup, you look at that rotation, you think, well, there's plenty here, but
they're not really hitting, Dalton. They're really not.
And like for years on end now, they just don't seem to put it together, and it's hard to put a finger on why. Don't sleep on they go to DC this weekend. Don't sleep on that Nats team. That Nats team is not bad.
No,
so it's I think it'll be interesting to see, like, can they turn it around and become a playoff contender like I think they should be, or I mean, are they going to become sellers? That's what I start wondering about.
Yeah, they're in the bottom third of the league in most categories. I mean, offensive and pitching. I mean, they really are struggling to remain consistent. 28th in runs per game. They're tied for 25th in hits per game. And again, batting average against, they're tied for 26th. WHIP, they're 24th. Like they're really struggling in a lot of areas. So it's definitely something to point out there. So yeah, see, even the Rockies and Marlins in such an unexciting season for them, they're finding ways to make history in baseball. That's what's great. But the Mets right now are down to the Cubs in New York in the bottom of the 6th. That's a 1-0 game. The Boston Red Sox are they better than what we expect? That's a team. I mean, they're up 5-2 right now in Boston against the Giants in the bottom of the 5th. I mean, the Red Sox, they might have the best pitching staff in baseball at this point in time. They have a 2.59 team ERA, Dalton. Are they better than what we thought?
No. To put it simply, I mean, a lot of that is that they also have the worst defense in baseball, and so they're giving up a ton of unearned runs that are not showing up on these ERAs. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean these guys aren't getting hit around. The pitching staff has definitely overperformed expectation, and it's commendable. And
sure.
Hey, good on them, right? But this is not a Red Sox team that I'm expecting to look anything like this all season. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think sustainability for them is not, especially in that division. I don't really see it.
Yeah, call me in mid-June regarding the Red Sox, and let's see where we stand on those
numbers. That's right. All right, so the Nationals are up right now on the Texas Rangers, the bottom of the 3rd, 1-0. Guardians and Astros are scoreless in the top of the 3rd, and as we said before, Dodgers and Diamondbacks kicking off tomorrow. Not tomorrow, a little bit later. Tonight at 9:40 Eastern time, it's Yamamoto against Jordan Montgomery. Okay, so that's it for our first score update. We'll give another one after the 1-2-3 inning. Let's start with the 1-2-3 inning here. The first out, Mike Trout at the moment. I mean, it's getting really almost tragic at this point, right? Like the guy is really struggling to stay healthy. He's played less than 100 games, 4 out of the last 5 seasons. I guess if you want to call 2020, tough, but let's say 3 out of the last 4, he's been under 100 games. I mean, it's just, and it seems to be a relatively steady decline in his production. I mean, he's 32 years old. He's, like we said, he's on the wrong side of 30. I mean, we didn't have much expectations for the Angels anyway, right? But this was a team that I think you and I could both agree, especially on your end, because you are now an Ohtani fanboy, right, over there in Los Angeles. But but they made the mistake of not selling Ohtani last year, right? They made the mistake of not dumping anybody on the roster, and they not only did they not sell, but they bought. They really tried to shed or I shouldn't say shed. They kind of thinned out their farm system even more to try to get better last year, and it came around to bite them. So,
yeah,
will
Mike,
they finally get the hint?
Artie Moreno's an idiot. Like, it's just the reality of the situation. Their owner is an idiot. And so, he's too prideful to sell so many times where they could. It's part of why that team hasn't been any good for a long time. I mean, they haven't really made any effort to kind of overhaul things. They look, even before Rendon got hurt, like, why are you're rolling that guy out there every day like he's ready to contribute? Like, think about it this way: if Anthony Rendon is on like any other roster in baseball, save like maybe the Rockies or the A's or the White Sox, right? But like if he's on other rosters that are considered kind of in that mid to lower tier category, like the Angels, those teams are not going to keep rolling him out there. You're not going to learn anything new about him. You know what he is. He's just eating money and taking up space. On the Trout thing, I look. You never like to see a guy get hurt. Obviously, I feel terrible for him. The interview that he gave the other day was heartbreaking. You could tell he was like borderline in tears. I do want to revisit the fact that this is exactly why we smashed the unders on him preseason, right?
Yep.
Every year, and you could do this in any sport. Do it in basketball, do it in football. You should never bet a preseason player prop over. You just should not ever do it, and this is why. Trout was off to a torrid start. 10 homers already. Granted, a hilariously low number of RBIs given the number of homers that he had. And then it all can go away. And now under 30 and a half homers, under 93 and a half RBIs, both of which I gave out on the first episode of the show during the hot corner, are both looking likely to cash. And this is why we do what we do on the unders. It's the only way you should look. And so, I feel terrible for him. It's the same thing I did with Byron Buxton last year. I won the biggest bet I ever made in my life on Buxton under 30 and a half homers last year. But yeah, I hope he gets well soon. And if you didn't tell me on that bet, maybe this will be a little bit of a lesson as to why I made it.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, when you were explaining it then, it made a lot of sense, right? Because again, just given the track record of recent years, we all know what Mike Trout is when he's healthy, right? Nobody's going to argue about what Mike Trout is when he's healthy. And again, even if the best of Mike Trout is behind him, like you said before, this season we even saw, I mean, even if it was going to be one of these seasons, because listen, when he went down, he was hitting 220, right? So the batting average was obviously in the lower part of, it was low for him. But again, it was early in the year, laughable amount of RBIs, 10 home runs, only 14 ribbies, which is incredible. But I don't know what. Let me ask you this. What is Mike Trout now? Is Mike Trout still one of those players that we can consider among the best, or is that time behind him? And how long has it been behind him, do you think?
I think Mike Trout is still one of the best players in the game when he's healthy.
Yeah.
I'm not that concerned with the batting average if you're putting up double-digit home runs in April.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So to me, like, he's still shown us that when he's healthy, he's elite. So I'm not too concerned about it, but there's a little bit of like a Clayton Kershaw-ness to it where, Kershaw the last few years, when he's actually been out there, he's continuing to put up great numbers. But you're just watching a player kind of wear down a little bit, right? Like you're seeing guys who are just, well, here's another 80 games, right? Like I hope they come at the right time. And so I feel for him because the ability is still there, the drive is still there. But this is kind of what happens to guys as they get older. I hope he can put together a couple more healthy years. I'd like to see him do it. Yeah. I'd also like to see him pull his head out of the sand on this whole I'm going to win an Anaheim thing and realize that ownership's not going to let that happen. But that's another conversation for another day.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the Angels do spend money. I mean, it's not like their wallets are not open. They have a track record of spending money, but it just feels like none of their deals work out for them. I mean, Albert Pujols didn't work out for them. Josh Hamilton didn't work out for them. CJ Wilson didn't work out for them. I mean, we're talking about guys that when they signed them, I mean, and this is years ago now, but when they signed them, Rendon, add him to the list as well, they just don't perform there. They just don't. So
yeah, I mean, look, part of it is the player development there hasn't been good.
no.
Like that, it doesn't seem like players get great coaching there. They're very much a Mickey Mouse organization. Like that's how they're viewed around the game, and for good reason. Like it's an organization that from top to bottom does not do things the right way. Like a few years ago, I was down there for Angels Twins. I was watching the Twins because, like I think I've said on the show before, one of my good buddies works for them, and they had a rain delay down there, and like they couldn't figure out how to get the tarp onto the field, and they ended up having to postpone the next day's game because they could not figure out how to keep their field dry from it raining.
Wow.
Like it's an organization that from the players on the field to the front office to the staff, like just top to bottom, it's not run well. It's like the Rockies have a little bit of that stink to them too, where it's just like an organization from top to bottom that's not run well. And it's not surprising that they sign the wrong guys as they're declining. It's just kind of their identity as a franchise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame. And I hope you're right too, because like Mike Trout, you can obviously see the loyalty he has for Anaheim, but he's a Jersey boy. You know, like he's from the East Coast. You know, like you're telling me, I mean, and there were some rumors circling through this offseason that I don't think ever really had much merit to them as much as anything else. But like, are you telling me that like if the Phillies were interested, you don't think he'd want to go? I just think that like there's a line to that, right?
I mean, he didn't sign there when he had the chance, and I think they were in on him. So it's just it's loyalty to the point that you can no longer argue that you care about winning above all else, and that's the unfortunate thing. Is I think he does want to win. He just too badly wants to win in Anaheim.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of some misplaced sense of like, well, I'm going to be that guy that stays in the same place because that's what I liked in athletes when I grew up. And it's like, no, dude, like you got to do what's best for you, man. Like, can you imagine that Philly team right now if they had if they had Trout in that lineup? I mean, they're already a fun team to watch. They'd be really fun to watch.
I know. They'd win every World Series ever. It would make me.
I don't know about that, but it'd be fun.
I'm exaggerating, but again, it's just crazy how good that lineup would be. Okay, so let's move to the second out here. So the team that you're wearing on your hat has had quite the past couple of weeks. 10 straight wins for them. They now sit at 17-13. Obviously, easy math. They were 7-13 heading into that, and this was a team that really was struggling on the offensive side. Like they really were struggling hitting. Now they have Carlos Correa back. He's back in the lineup. And this is now a team where, again, we can finally, I think, start to buy in a little bit more. We feel a little bit more comfortable about our preseason predictions. They're still fourth in the AL Central. It's crazy to me because you and I boasted so much about how bad this division can be, right? They are right now the only division in baseball with 4 teams that are over 500. And again, I understand it's May 1st, but like, isn't that nuts? Like, do you think, first of all, let's start here. Are the White Sox that bad that the rest of their division can just mollywop them? And that's crazy to me.
And any question that starts with "Are the White Sox that bad?" the answer is yes.
Yes.
But look, it's cute. Detroit is cute. Kansas City's cute. I'm happy to see those teams taking a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Cleveland,
Those
look, I
damn
mean,
frauds, the Guardians.
the run differential with them of plus 45 is legit. I'll give them that. I mean, that's better than the Yankees, better than the O's.
Yeah.
Um, Kansas City's run differential plus 50. I mean, these teams have genuinely kicked ass. They haven't been like one run game merchants. So good for them, right? Exciting. Good to see baseball in those cities. That's worth watching and fun to watch. But let's not go too crazy. It's May 1st. The Twins are going to win that division. I still thoroughly believe that. And I think you could probably get a pretty good number on them to do so at this point, depending on what book you look at. I do want to talk about this run the Twins are on. 10 in a row. And I think this is where, you've heard me say a million times, like, you don't want to overreact to what you see early in the season.
Yeah.
And this is, to me, just regression to the mean, right? Like, if I told you at the end of April, Twins are going to be 17-13, plus 15 run differential, you'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I buy that.
Yeah, sounds about right. You know what I mean? So that they kind of just, to me, it's just they kind of just course corrected to where they were supposed to be. And it makes a ton of sense. Like, last 10 games, they played 3 with the White Sox, 4 with the Angels, 3 with the White Sox. That'll do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's fun. I'm happy to see the Twins start to figure it out offensively. I think this is who they are is somewhere in between, but I think realistically they're a team that goes roughly 17-13 every month, finishes the season 15 to 20 games over 500. Makes it as the division winner, but the 3 seed, and we'll see from there.
Yeah. Funny thing about the Twins at the moment is that they are the league leader in Major League Baseball at the moment in K per 9. They're striking out guys. They're striking out 10.5 guys a game.
And that's without Duran, who just came back. You want
right? Yeah. So
yeah.
And listen, I want to see, because I actually haven't looked, but Pablo Lopez has a 4.83 ERA. See, that's what happens. I pick somebody to win a Cy Young, and their ERA hovers about 5. That's what happens. It's same thing with Aaron Judge, right? I picked Aaron Judge to win MVP. He's hitting 210. I can't catch a break.
I gave you the answer with Tyler Glasnow at 14-1 preseason. So
I know you did, but hey, you were also on Joe Musgrove too, and his start hasn't been fantastic either.
Listen, you got to take a 50-1 shot every once in a while.
That's right. He's really.
Hey, you got the win today. Pitched a little better today, so.
Yeah, see, there you go. But no, the Twins are interesting, man. And listen, this is what their lineup looked like before the season. This was what we saw their lineup as. If I can find it, there we go. Here we go. So this is what we were looking at, and just if you compare it to the rest of these rosters, right? It's just it is without a doubt the deepest and the most talented, right? Now, again, losing Royce Lewis was a big deal. Losing Carlos Correa for that bit of time, it was a big deal. But again, if they are, because you touch on, them playing 7 games against the White Sox and then 3 games against the Angels, I understand those are poor teams, but just in relation to the 10-game win streak, I mean, 2 weeks of winning baseball is a lot to ask for in Major League. You got to like it's very easy. Even again, I mean, as poor as we believe that the Angels are, and as poor as we believe, obviously, how poor we believe the White Sox are, but you still have to not fumble for 2 straight weeks in order to to take advantage of that schedule. I mean, how many times have we seen winning baseball teams completely lose it on a stretch where they should go 9-1 and they go 4-6?
Yeah, I mean, the Dodgers did that like the other week, right? I mean, they went 2-4 in a week where they saw the Nationals and Mets at home. It's baseball, man. You know what I mean? Like that's why, like, when we're halfway through April, you're hearing me respond to just about everything with it'll course correct, because it will.
Yeah. It's such a numbers game. It feels like that's why I think like new age don't you think that's kind of why some of these older fans are getting bored of new age baseball? Because everything, and it's just so pointed out now. where it's just like our buddy Tim Barnard of the Boston Sports Summit on the Grid says he hates nerds in sports, right? Because that's just how he feels, right? Because he just feels like, everything is so number corrected and so statistically predictable that it makes it a little boring. So,
Mike, have you ever heard the saying, if you don't have anything nice to say, you don't say anything at all?
yes,
because that's where I'm at with people who are anti-analytics and anti-nerds in sports. I'll leave it at that, because this, like, people who rail against, let's try to get better at this and more efficient at this, and let's try to maximize it. Like, you're just telling on yourself if you're against that. Like, the game will adjust to itself over time. It always has. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this because you're going to see me get real annoyed. And maybe he wants to come on the show and defend himself sometime. I'd love to have the conversation if he's got thick enough skin for it. But
no, I love Timmy. But
the anti-analytic stuff, it doesn't fly with me.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, look, I've become more of a buyer in. My uncle is maybe the best mathematical genius I've ever seen in my life. And it is remarkable how on point his end of season projections are just based on data. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, I've never seen anything like, I don't think that you can at this point deny the impact of what analytics does to the game. Now, whether or not you think it's good for the sport, I think that's a reasonable debate. But hold on a minute, because I do think that it's somewhat reasonable, and we don't have to go into this too deep, but everything that has to do with like where the sport is now, if you compare it to what it was 30 years ago, right? Everything seems to be more analytically driven now. Everything seems to be more focused on base percentage, everything less obviously, line drives up the middle, way more launch angle. All of this stuff all plays into an analytically driven sport. And a lot of people don't like that. And listen, I think that there's a place in baseball debate for that. Again, I don't really know which side I fall on, especially as a fan. I don't know, but it's definitely a discussion that could be had. Yeah.
Look, I haven't had this conversation with Tim, so I don't want to speak ill about Tim.
Yeah.
I don't know where he stands on this.
And this isn't just this. This isn't. I'm not really pointing.
No, I
out
know.
I'm talking more about. Yeah.
As a general rule, the more anti-analytic somebody is, the less likely they are to understand analytics. That's almost always what it comes down to.
Interesting.
If you actually get inside that person's head and kind of get into them about it, usually they just don't really get it. Number one. Second thing is the argument that becoming smarter about our sport and becoming better at predicting what creates success in our sport, the argument that pursuit makes the sport worse is an anti-competitive argument. Are you understanding what I mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the idea that wanting to be better and better and better at something and understand something better and better and better is worse for it is to say that wanting to win is bad for the sport. No, it ain't. Like, now, how we get that information into the hands of the viewing audience, how we help the viewing audience understand why certain decisions are being made and making it make sense for the viewing audience, that is something baseball has not figured out how to do yet. But the idea that the analytics themselves are the problem is something I will always push back on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, like I said, it's certainly a lively debate for a reason. But all right, so let's move on to this. We go to the third out. Congratulations to the Twins on winning 10 straight. First team to 20 wins, by the way, in the major leagues was the Philadelphia Phillies, very sneakily, I will say. Let's go to the third out. We have an exciting Braves-Dodgers series, Dalton. So that's going to be happening in Los Angeles. Could it potentially be an NLCS preview? I think we can certainly make an argument that could be a likelihood. I see where I'm looking at the moment. right? I rely on the app, The Score, for a lot of my stuff. I like the way that they lay things out. But they also don't have all the pitching matchups slated for that series. So what are these pitching matches? I see Charlie Morton and Gavin Stone on Friday, but I don't get anything after that. So what's the rest of the series look like?
Yeah, so Friday we've got Charlie Morton and Gavin Stone. Saturday we've got Bryce Elder lining up against Tyler Glasnow. And then Sunday we've got Max Fried and James Paxton. By the way, shout out ESPN choosing Giants Phillies over Dodgers Braves for their Sunday night game. And I do mean that genuinely because it's a Sunday that I don't have to watch the ESPN broadcast. And I am like unironically happy about that. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it should be a ton of fun. Morton and Stone, obviously guys on opposite ends of their careers. Charlie Morton, still finding ways to be effective at his advanced age. Gavin Stone finally coming into his own, starting to look like a dude. What a tough matchup for him here. And it'll be really interesting to see how he responds to it. In my mind, it's kind of a win-win, right? Like either he looks great and it's like, okay, like he just looked great against the Braves. Clearly he's taken that step. Or if he doesn't, it's like, all right, man, it was the Braves. Like, let's learn from it, right?
Yeah.
So it's great that he's getting to face a team like that on May 3rd and learn a little bit about where he's actually at. Morton's interesting to me because he continues to put up very solid numbers. The Baseball Savant page is a little bit more middling. You look at like the chase rates below average, whiff below average, walk percentage below average. He's allowing more barrels than average. Fastball velo is obviously a little bit below average, but he keeps avoiding hard contact for the most part. That breaking ball keeps producing. He's got an 84th percentile run value on it. So, overall, he just continues to kind of roll along and do his thing.
I mean, hey, listen, I was in, and I'll touch on that a little bit later on when we've got a little bit of free time in the show. But I was in Atlanta for his last start against Cleveland on Saturday night, and 7 strong, 4 hits, none earned. Like Charlie Morton is an old man and still finding ways to get outs.
Yeah,
he still throws like 96. Like it's kind of wild.
Well, the fastball is down a little. He's averaging 93.8 this year off 94.5 last year. So it is starting to dip a little with his age, which makes sense.
Still mid 90s though. At 40 years old, still mid 90s, dude.
He still gets on you. That's another one that'll be interesting too, right? I mean, you have a guy who like it's all about pitchability with him.
Yeah.
And against this Dodgers lineup and what they do to righties, like he better be good. So that game Friday night, I could see both pitchers pitching well. I could see both pitchers getting hit around. Should be a ton of fun. I think the line will probably be about a pick 'em. So that'll be cool. Saturday, you've got Bryce Elder and Tyler Glasnow.
Both pitching great.
I am, obviously really excited about what I've seen from Glasnow. I was at his I was at his start 2 starts ago. When he pitched at Dodger Stadium against the Mets and threw the 8 shutout innings, and it was just electric. And I loved seeing his emotion when he finished that 8th inning.
Yep.
I didn't think that Roberts was going to let him finish that inning. So that was awesome. So yeah, I mean, just a ton of fun. Elder's fascinating to me for the Braves. Like this is a guy who now 2 years in a row puts up great numbers, and none of the like advanced stuff says that he's great. Like he's 3rd percentile in K percentage. Doesn't really get anybody to miss. He doesn't really miss any bats. Doesn't get anybody to chase. The expected ERA for him is 4.26, despite his actual being 1.5. I'm just like, this is not a dude who like I'm wanting to trust. But then again, it's like 2 years in a row now we've kind of seen him do this. I will say, like, he pitched pretty well at home against the Dodgers last year, pitched pretty well at Dodger Stadium, 6 innings, 1 run in each game. So guy seems to step up and find a way. So
hey, Bryce, you ready to get thrown off the edge? Bryce Elder looks to be the perfect anti-analytics guy.
I mean, it's I'll put it this way: analytics allows space for like statistical improbabilities to like it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
The Astros have had guys like that, and part of it is that if you're pitching with a lead a lot, it helps. Like Framber Valdez has kind of been that way. Like Luis Garcia when he was healthy, are kind of that way. It helps when you're pitching in front of a great offense. But no, I mean credit to him, he's finding a way. And then obviously the two lefties, Fried and Paxton on Sunday. Paxton, it's just a matter of like, can he throw strikes? Like if he doesn't walk 5-6 guys, he tends to be pretty effective.
Yeah.
And then Max Fried, I think, is finally starting to put it together after a rough start.
Yeah, I mean Max Fried, Max Fried's an interesting matchup here, just because you're exactly right. He did not have a great start to the season. His last 2 starts, he's been very, very good. And here's really the interesting thing about Max Fried against the Dodgers. I mean, you said it a lot during the preseason. You want to find a way to neutralize the Dodgers bats. Throw lefties at them, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the only shot you have. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Max Fried is maybe as effective as a left-handed starting pitcher as in the game as you can get. So that's going to be an interesting one. I mean, that's going to put a lot of pressure on James Paxton too, because that looks like, to me, it's going to be one of those games where you're going to need to pitch your way out of that game. And tell me if I'm wrong on that. But
yeah, I mean, with Fried, like, because I want to touch on Fried, like he's also a guy who grew up, like I grew up playing baseball against him. He's from Encino. He went to Harvard Westlake. I'm from Woodland Hills. I went to Chaminade. Those are like rival high schools in the Valley for most of our listeners who have no idea what I'm talking about. So I kind of grew up playing against him. This is a guy that loves coming back to LA and pitching. Like it's just, he's like every time he pitches in LA, he's been dominant. It helped, like, and these are only good Dodger teams, right? I mean, he's been in the league since 2017. In fact, most players in baseball at this point haven't faced a bad Dodger team, but 2.68 ERA for his career against the Dodgers, like that's really impressive. 2.57 for his career at Dodger Stadium over 4 starts. Right. I wouldn't bet against him against the Dodgers on Sunday.
Coming from a Dodger fan, that means a lot, man. I'm so disappointed. I really thought that me taking a jab at analytics with Bryce Elder was really going to throw you off the rails more. I'm disappointed, man. I really am.
No, because the reality with analytics is that like it there's a reason that error exists, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
And there are certain guys who find ways to succeed outside of what usually analytically leads to success. So
yeah,
it's a constantly changing thing. And I think like to not acknowledge that there are going to be exceptions is to be too hard-headed about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, like I said, I thought that was going to garner more of a reaction, but that's all right. You're more level-headed than I am, I guess. Oh man. Okay. So let's dive into another score update here. So a couple of games I think wrapped up while we were going about our thing. The Rockies and Marlins. The Marlins took a 4-1 win against Colorado in Miami. The Yankees beat the Orioles 2-0. How about that? You shut us out in game 1. We shut you out in game 3. And I was worried about this too, because it was Corbin. We were going against Corbin Burns tonight. And I was really worried that, like, all right, we lose the first 2 games of the series against starting pitchers that are not, like, obviously, like, I was really hoping early on in this series between the Yankees and the O's that you were going to see the Yankees get on them early, right? Coming off of 2 massive offensive days against Milwaukee. You're then facing a fairly sporadic Grayson Rodriguez. His stuff is nasty, but the command is still a much a work in progress for him. And then Dean Kramer, who is a 4.7 ERA guy. Like, I'm like, all right, now is the time to get on the Orioles. And what do you know? They win a game against the Orioles against Corbin Burns and shutting them out. Again, Luis Gil, 6 1/3, 2 hits, none earned. Clay Holmes got a 5-out save today. I like that. Clay Holmes looked good now. And he's one of those things where he's one of those guys where, like, he always makes you sweat, and it drives me nuts. It really does. But last few appearances for him, he's been absolutely lights out. So
Yeah, I mean
that's
the Yankees Orioles series going 2-0, 2-0 each way. Like that's a playoff series. Is kind of what that feels like.
it is. It really
fun.
is.
It's fun baseball to watch.
It certainly is. Mets and Cubs still 1-0 as we head into the bottom of the 8th in Queens between the Mets and the Cubs. Red Sox right now up 6-2 on the Giants. 1-0 Nationals again still as we head into the 6th. Nationals over the Rangers in Texas, and the Guardians, the fraudulent Guardians, have a 2-0 lead against the Houston Astros. They're in trouble. The Houston Astros, and we touched on this last week, the Astros are in trouble. They just sent Jose Abreu down to rookie ball. Like, they've got a big issue on their hands, Dalton. They need to figure that out quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the good news for the Astros is that they can hit.
Yeah.
So like they can hit. It's May 1st. I'm not totally giving up on them. Like I think that you can make a pretty solid argument that there's value on them in futures markets, but it's also like if I'm an Astros fan, I'm not worried. Like it's been bad. We've beaten that down pretty good.
Yeah. So they're 10-19, last in the AL West at the moment. Yeah, it's been a struggle. They did win an extra inning game last night.
And on the Astros too. Shout out Joey Loberfito, former Duke Blue Devil, got called up yesterday. Had a 2-run base hit, so that was good to see as a Duke graduate.
There you go. See, it's not all negative, but all right. So that's your score update. I know we kind of wanted to touch on the A's a little bit because that's a really interesting ball club, right? I mean, like they're 15-17. They're third right now in their division. And I think that, we keep talking about, and this seems to be like a running theme right now in this show, where kind of regressing down to the mean or progressing towards the mean in the long term, right? I think that realistically, this is a team that is going to finish, I think, probably with a poor record, right? But
you're saying you don't think the Oakland A's are great?
I don't think the Oakland A's are great. I don't.
Man,
I know.
We got to get your eyes checked, Mike. I mean, this team's won 6 out of 7.
I know.
Baseball.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm kidding.
But listen, there is something to be said about a team that wins 6 out of 7. Look, they split a 4-gamer against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. They took 2 out of 3 in Baltimore, and now they just swept the Pittsburgh Pirates at home. So, I mean, the A's are one of these scrappy little ball clubs that, let me tell you something, they can pitch. That's a team that has sneaky good pitching.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like the young pitchers for them have seemingly all taken a step.
Mason Miller's disgusting.
Yo, Mason Miller, I saw a stat on Twitter today. His FIP, which is fielding independent pitching for our analytics haters here.
It's my favorite pitching stat ever.
His FIP is negative 0.14. Negative. That's crazy. I mean, he's been disgusting. I picked him up on my fantasy team like a couple weeks ago, and it's been a ton of fun to have like an A's reliever on my fantasy team that's just dusting people up.
So how does that work? So if you have a fielding independent pitching in the negatives, does that like technically mean that like Mason Miller is scoring runs for the A's instead of giving them up?
From a value perspective, you could sort of make that argument.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of a mathematical anomaly that I'm sure will not last, but it's a hilarious thing to see. And I'll put it this way: you're not putting that number up if you haven't been dominant.
No, absolutely not. But you know what's interesting, because it was frustrating to see him pitch against the Yankees because he's so dominant, right? He's just so dominant. And, it kind of speaks to a lot of what is going on with the A's at the moment, especially if you don't get on them early, you're in trouble because their bullpen has guys that are just gross. Lucas Ursag is another one. where they just have guys that are like their stuff is insane. But
Yeah.
Mason Miller is a guy who pumps 103 pretty consistently.
Yeah.
But he's kind of a slider guy. Like he throws his like he has like an 88-mile-an-hour slider, and he throws that almost just as much as his heater.
I mean, he's an immediate entrant into that Emmanuel Clase, Edwin Diaz, Yohan Duran category of just like, and Camilo Doval is in that category, I'd say as well, of closers who are just like, the stuff is just so ridiculous. It's unfathomable.
It's unhittable. Right.
Yeah. So, the A's have been fun. I mean, they're like, talk about a team that's due for regression, right? They're 15-17. They're not that good. But again, I think it's important to acknowledge teams like this when they go on a little run. So good for them.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's I think this is worth pointing out. As much as the A's have been fun to watch from a pitching perspective, right? Because they've got some young pitchers that I think people can get pretty excited about. We just touched on a couple of them. I mean, they are they're like at the bottom of the league in almost every offensive category.
Yeah, let's not talk.
Yeah, who cares about that, right? 29th in runs scored, 30th in hits, 30th in average, 28th in on base, 24th in slugging, 27th in OPS. Yeah, they're really struggling with the bats, guys.
I think you just had to tear him down because you didn't like the fact that the Yankees didn't push him around last week.
Oh, come on. That's low. You really think that low of me?
I don't know.
Man, oh man. Yikes. All right. So hot corner. Put a little bit of money in your pocket. What do you have for us?
Yeah, I got a couple here. Both. Well, actually, I got one more order of business. I got one question for you before the hot
Yeah. Go ahead.
And this is the most important question we're going to ask all night. All right.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that. I don't know why. How did I forget?
I need to know which one of these two things is more likely to happen again before the end of the season.
Yes.
Another delay caused by a swarm of bees, like happened in last night's Dodgers-Diamondbacks game in Arizona, or the White Sox sweeping another series all season against anyone.
Bees. Give me bees.
I think bees too, because I think that White Sox team is going to struggle to win 50 games. So, like, to string 3 in a row together is tough, and we have seen bees before. So, but yeah, it's gonna be a photo finish. I'm gonna be looking for both all year.
That was remarkable yesterday. I thought what the Diamondbacks did was so cool. That it was like a 90-minute delay because there was a beehive or bees something tied into the net behind home plate.
Yeah.
And they had the beekeeper that spent all that time trying to clear it. They had him throw out the ceremonial first pitch before the game. That's just awesome. That's cool.
No, it was. Cool. It was one of those moments that kind of makes Major League Baseball what it is. You know what I mean? Where you get just like these oddities throughout the season. So it was awesome. It was so funny because I was sitting there thinking, like, I had a moment where I was watching all this pregame hullabaloo, and I'm trying to stay awake because I was off a red-eye flight, and I'm thinking, like, man, like, why can't they just play? And then the Diamondbacks announcer's like, well, see, the problem is if a foul ball comes back and hits that net, those bees are going to scatter, and you're going to get about 70 people stung. And I'm like, yeah, that probably makes sense.
Yeah, it makes it. You can't play under those conditions, man. You just can't. Listen, I don't know how you feel about bees. Like, I don't know if they don't bother you or not.
They bother me a lot, yeah.
Bro, I can't. I'll tell you a quick story. So my wife and I go to Cooperstown a lot. It's one of our favorite towns to go. Obviously, I'm a baseball fan, but we love Lake Otsego. We just love the town itself. And we were sitting. It was in the summertime, and this was probably one of the best weeks of my life, right? Because we lucked into Derek Jeter's Hall of Fame induction because they had rescheduled it for earlier in the year. So we lucked into it, right? We are there in the summer. It's hot as balls. It's like it's crazy. We are getting breakfast at a place near our hotel right by the lake, right? And I am having, pancakes. I've got a side of eggs and bacon and whatever, right? And again, there's bees everywhere. And I don't know that I ate half of my plate just because I can't be around bees that long. I just can't. I'm not, well, honestly, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if I'm allergic. I've never been stung before, but like I had to have my wife take care of our bill because I just couldn't be around that many bees. I couldn't. It makes me so uncomfortable.
That's wild, man. Especially having not been stung.
Yeah. So I take it that you have then.
I have, and I mean, it's not the worst thing ever, but it hurts, right?
Yeah.
It's enough that when I see bees, I'm like, no thanks,
Yeah.
But that's a really funny way to be about it. I mean, they are kind of freaky looking. I'm not really a fan of them.
They're mean looking. Like they're yellow and sharp looking, and they're annoying. What do you want me to say? And maybe my big fear of, and I wouldn't call it, it's a fear. I'll man up and say it's a fear. But maybe my fear of bees stems from the fact that I haven't been stung before. I'm imagining the worst.
I mean, I get that.
All
right, Mike, I got some bets for you here.
Yeah, go for it.
Couple for tomorrow. I got two of them. First one, we're going to go to the afternoon. Cubs Mets from Citi Field. Shota Imanaga tonight, putting up another 7 innings. By the way, his ERA is down to 0.8.
He's so good, dude.
Yeah. So that's part of why I like this one. Cubs are well rested going into a bullpen day, and I think they're going to attack the early part of this game pretty effectively. Ben Brown will start for them. He'll be followed by, I'm sure, a number of guys back and forth, right and left. And they're taking on Adrian Hauser for the Mets. I think we're getting the better team here in the Cubs. Undervalued because it's a bullpen game. People expect bullpen games to be some kind of disaster, and they're usually not, especially when a bullpen's pretty well rested, like this one will be after tonight.
Yeah.
And they're taking on Adrian Hauser, who's just been embarrassing for the Mets.
8.5 ERA.
6 runs to St. Louis over 4.1 innings in his last start. Gave up 8 runs to the Dodgers in the start before that. He's just bad. I mean, when he faced Atlanta, he gave up another 5. So he's been one of the worst pitchers in baseball.
Right.
And this Cubs team is pretty good. Like, I think and this first 5 line with the Cubs is only minus 105. To me, I'd probably make the Cubs minus 140 or so.
Yeah.
In both the first 5 and the full game. So I think it's a good opportunity to just bet a team here that's undervalued because they're doing a bullpen game, and there's like a public assumption that means that they're going to suck. Another pitcher I want to target tomorrow in a similar spot. First 5 innings, I like the Washington Nationals plus half a run against the Texas Rangers.
Interesting.
Mitchell Parker for them. You heard me mention him last week as a guy to watch.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah.
Like this kid's good. 3 starts now. We're looking at 16 innings, 3 earned runs, 14 strikeouts, 2 walks. That'll play. 2-0 the 169.
Yeah.
And we're catching plus money with him tomorrow. Look, I get Eovaldi's good. I get that the Rangers are pretty good. But I don't think that there's some huge difference between these teams at the moment. The Nats are actually playing like decent, respectable baseball. Eovaldi has 5 and 6 walks, 11 walks combined in his last 2 starts. You can get the Nats right now plus half a run in the first 5 innings, meaning you just need them to have the game tied through 5 innings and you win this bet. Nats plus half a run in the first 5 innings comes in at even money. You can also play them first 5 innings on the money line at plus 145. I like taking the half run, but I think that's a great spot to back a team that's undervalued because their pitcher doesn't have name recognition. We all thought they were going to suck preseason, and they're actually kind of okay. So I'm backing the rookie Mitchell Parker, who has looked awesome so far for Washington.
Yeah, he really has. 1.69 ERA. He's been absolutely fantastic to start his big league career. Nationals 14 and 15, and I think that's better than what people expected. This is a team that's full of seemingly nobodies. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's a decent ball club. Like CJ Abrams is a stud.
Yeah, he's really good.
Like
really
if CJ Abrams were playing in like New York or LA or Chicago, like he'd be getting a lot more publicity. He's a stud. They're gonna be fun. They're a fun ball club. Like they're not good, but they're not bad.
No.
Especially when they get James Wood up at the big league club, that'll be fun too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the Nats are watchable. Good for them.
Yeah. They're the A's of the National League. Quite literally. I mean,
I think they're a little better than the A's, but we'll see.
So, all right. So there we go. All right. That does it for us. Pretty solid show today, I think. I'm Mike Guido. That's Dalton Brown. This is the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast on the Grid Network, the only exclusive baseball podcast on the Grid Network. Dalton, any parting words before we leave for next week?
Go Dodgers. Let's not shit the bed and get swept by the Braves this weekend. And I hope Yoshinobu pitches well in about 9 minutes.
There you go. That's perfect. Yep. Catch that matchup as well. Yamamoto, Jordan Montgomery, Dodgers, Diamondbacks in Arizona. Hopefully no bees, even though that would kind of cash our bet that would happen before the White Sox sweep another series. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Next Monday is what we're shooting for next week. We'll see you then.